Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second Pets Pulpit preseason pregame preview, this time between the New England Patriots and the Chicago Bears. I'm here with Alec Shane. Alec, how you doing?
I'm not going to lie, Rich. I've been better. I haven't shaved. I haven't showered. I'm hungry. I'm cranky. It's a little cooler than it was the last time we talked, but you know what? It's okay because there's a game coming up soon, and it's almost the weekend, so I'm going to stop complaining right now.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. I got my full thing of coffee right here for the rest of the game. Made some cold brew, so hopefully that'll keep me through the end and all the post game funness. But this is going to be kind of an interesting, fun game because it's going to be very different from the last preseason game. We are expected to finally see quarterback Tom Brady, which I think is the most important and fun part of preseason in and of itself because it's Tom Brady. He's the main attraction. We're not going to see any other real star other than him. So we're going to take what we can from it. And then we're also expected to see wide receiver Chris Hogan for the first time. He has been on the field and he is expected to participate. So, Alec, are you ready for this week of football?
I am. I'm really excited for this game, probably more excited than I should be for a week 2 preseason game, mainly because this week of practice between the Bears and the Patriots was action-packed. Sparks were flying, fists were flying, emotions running high, people getting booted from practice left and right. A lot of fire, a lot of energy. You like to see that. Nothing malicious, I don't think. Not like these teams hate each other. I don't think the 85 Bears are the ghosts of the 85 Bears are still here in New England. But whenever you have that kind of passion, that kind of energy, you imagine it's going to translate pretty well onto the field, even for this preseason, especially for those guys fighting for those roster spots. And week 2 is really the last chance for some of these guys because week 3, as we all know, is the big warm-up game. A lot of the starters are going to be in. So expect a lot of these Patriots and Bears who are kind of on the back end looking to round out the roster to keep that energy going, keep that momentum going, and try to kind of translate that fire onto the field. Should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think one of the big fights that we saw this preseason was between Malcolm Butler and Alshon Jeffrey, who is the Bears' star wide receiver. He's been their big target since Brandon Marshall left. He kind of actually ascended into that role, came into his own. And then they had a former top 10 pick who missed the entirety of last season with a big injury, and he's back out on the field. So this is probably going to be one of the better wide receiver cores that the Patriots are going to see for a long time. But you did mention a little bit about how there's not bad blood, and I have to disagree because one of the big fights that happened 2 days in a row involved Martellus Bennett, who was the former Chicago Bears tight end, and he came out with an article on ESPN. He's the brother of Michael Bennett, the pass rusher for the Seahawks, and the two of them together did a little long form piece on ESPN where they did a tell-all. And Martellus Bennett did not hold any punches when talking about Jay Cutler. His brothers said that Cutler was the worst starting quarterback in the entire league. And Martellus Bennett came out and was like, yeah, I'd be open all the time, and he just wouldn't throw me the ball. Like, he would just miss me. He would throw it way over my head. And the two of them came to issues at the end of last season, and Martellus Bennett kind of finished the year on the IR with broken ribs or something like that. But they were definitely at each other's throats. And so when this practice happened, you saw Akeem Hicks got into a little thing with Martellus Bennett, threw him on his butt. I think it was Lamar Houston who started fights 2 days in a row with Bennett. I think one of them was after like a field goal or an extra point attempt drill. So it was out of nowhere. It wasn't really important. So I don't know. When you say there's no bad blood, I'm very, very curious to see if and how the Bears approach Martellus Bennett on the field.
You know, it's funny, man. I don't know how much weight I can put into anything Martellus Bennett says or does that doesn't involve catching and running with the football or blocking for runners.
He's the black unicorn. You got to respect him.
I think you and I are both pretty new to the Martellus Bennett party. Most Patriots fans are. I was a fan of his in Chicago, but everyone I've talked to, Bears fans included, have said he's a great player, very productive, but he is nuts. And so I wonder if at this point, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. I wonder if at this point it's a kind of scenario where, you know what, that's just Martellus gonna Martellus. That's just kind of how it is. And you can't take anything he says seriously. Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong there, but you know what, whatever. It's fun.
No, it's true. And I think he's going to get his fair share of time. If Tom Brady does play, which he is expected to, multiple reports, one of them's from Ian Rappaport of NFL Network, the other one's from Jeff Howe of the Herald. Both of them expect Tom Brady to start. The question is, how much will he play? But I think that this is a time where you don't really have Rob Gronkowski is not expected to play. Julian Edelman is not expected to play. Danny Amendola, Malcolm Mitchell. Those guys are not expected to suit up. I also don't believe Keyshawn Martin is expected to play. I would be surprised if Clay Harbor, I know he kind of got nicked up, but he might be out there again. But we'll find out what his role will be. Continuing for the running backs, Deion Lewis isn't expected to play. DJ Foster and Donald Brown, those guys are not expected to play either. So when you look at the viable offense for this New England Patriots, you have Martellus Bennett, you have Chris Hogan. I think that's really the only two guys you're expecting to see serious time in the regular season. So if I'm the Patriots, this is really the live action chance that you get with Brady and those two guys. So I think that early on you're going to see Brady with Bennett, and I really think that Bennett's going to get a lot of time to really acclimate himself into this offense.
Yeah, I hope so. You know, we haven't really seen this Patriots offense. We're not going to see him until the regular season starts. We're still waiting for Gronk and Bennett to be on the field at the same time. We're not going to see it this preseason, obviously. But at the same time, as much as I agree with you, Rich, I also wonder if Brady's going to be suspended, he also wants to get his reps with the lesser guys, the Aaron Dobsons of the world, and those guys who are trying to fight for a roster spot. So the real question on my mind is how much he's going to play. Usually in the first preseason game, the starting quarterback gets a series, maybe two. And Brady didn't play at all in that game. So maybe this is the preseason. He goes out there for one or two series, and that's it. Garoppolo takes over. And even then, I just don't know how much weight to put into Brady starting. And I feel like, honestly, the Patriots pulled a classic Bill Belichick move. And when the initial report came out that he wasn't going to play at all, Belichick read it and was like, well, I'm going to play him now just to say screw you.
Let's catch the Bears off guard here. We can really get an early start.
Yeah, so I mean, it's really all about, I guess, how productive the offense is and how much they can really get it done there. I'm really hoping, actually, I was hoping really to see both Donald Brown and DJ Foster. So I was really hoping to add a little more clarity to a very muddled backfield situation right now. I think Tyler Gaffney really did what he had to do and did everything he could do to earn his roster spot. Blunt did very little, and that position is just so wide open at the moment. I was hoping we'd be able to see all the running backs out there showcasing their wares, but it's probably not going to happen today, it sounds like, with those inactive juice listed.
No, it's true. And I think that, as you said, Gaffney did a great job last week. He burst out for that big, a 44-yard touchdown run. He really showed that he can run the ball. He can be decisive. He looks good in the open field. He can catch. He can play special teams. And then you compare that to what Blunt brings to the table. As, Blunt is a 250-pound bowling ball. But when it comes down to it, is that 9 carries for 20 yards behind that first-team offensive line, is that really enough to say, you know what, I'm going to take his size over what Gaffney brings as an overall player? I don't know. I think that Gaffney earned some time with the first team line, and I really hope that we get to see him in there because he could be fun. It could be fun to see how Gaffney plays. He picked up over 2,000 yards when he was at Stanford in his final year, had 27 touchdowns, something crazy. He was super productive, came out of minor league ball. The Patriots really like him because they love their super athletes. So I think that they'd be willing to give him a chance. He's also a lot cheaper than Blunt. He's younger. He's not healthier. We've talked about this a lot. He's spent the last 2 years on the injured reserve, but he has the potential and the opportunity. But I think the big question mark here that is on a lot of people's minds looking at this running back position is with Deion Lewis. We haven't seen him yet this entire preseason and during training camp. We saw him for a couple days. Actually, no, it might have even just been one day during mini camp back in June or May. You saw him for a little bit of time there. He looked good, but we haven't seen him again. You look at the players who are on the physically unable to perform the PUP list, and you have your Danny Amendola, you have your Sebastian Vollmer, you have your Trey Jackson, and then you have Lewis. But then you look at those other 3 players. Amendola has been practicing or warming up at the very least with the team every single day. Vollmer and Jackson, they've been coming out from time to time based off of how the weather is. We haven't seen a single sign of Lewis. James White looked good in reserves last week. He performed well in Lewis's role. But at what time, I'm asking you right now, what time do we worry about whether or not Lewis will be ready and available for week 1?
I'm not worried about Lewis. Every time I think about worrying about a player and how missing out on important reps in the preseason is going to affect his play, I think about Randy Moss's 2007 hamstring injury that kept him out for the entire preseason. And he opened his 2007 campaign with like 9 catches, 93 yards, and a touchdown, something along those lines. The real difference this year, obviously, is Tom Brady was there in 2007. This is Jimmy Garoppolo in 2016. You and I have talked excessively, Rich, about how important Deion Lewis is going to be for Jimmy Garoppolo in those first 4 weeks. You know, your check down receiver, your easy outlets, that's Deion Lewis's bread and butter. And he's the kind of guy that Garoppolo can rely on very heavily as he faces a, let's say, Arizona Cardinals pass rush that has a lot of dominant players on it. And so I think really more than anything else, they want to make sure that Lewis is 100% ready to go. There's not even a shadow of a doubt it's going to be unhealthy because he's a vital, vital part of that offense in those first 4 weeks. So why even bother? That's what I'm thinking.
No, and that's true. And my big holdup with that is we can treat Deion Lewis like the 2007 Randy Moss, but then we're also treating Julian Edelman like the 2007 Randy Moss, Danny Amendola like the 2007 Randy Moss, and Gronkowski in that same boat. So you have this entire offense. I know that it is important, and there has been a past experience. I mean, these guys all know the system. They've been in there for at least a year. You know, Lewis has been there for over a year. Edelman's been there since 2009. Amendola's been there since 2013. Gronk's been there since 2010. You have a lot of players that know the playbook. They're not going to be coming in off the street and not knowing how to play. They know their role in the Patriot system, and I think that they can do it well. So while there is that hesitation, and I think that we would all love to see them out there with them, I agree with you. You know, you let them rest. You let them rest. And I think that behind the offensive line, which I think is the most important part of this offense, and we're starting to see that come together. I think so long as this offensive line gels before week 1, this team is going to be okay, even if all the skill players don't suit up or are not in the full swing of things until week 2, week 3.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And to that end, it's funny. I think that it goes to show maybe that the coaching staff and the front office and the various NFL teams, because the Patriots are not alone in stashing a lot of guys for the preseason. Most teams don't play their stars too much in the preseason. And it goes to show that I don't really know how much these preseason games really serve to evaluate the top-tier talent for these NFL coaches that they cut down their rosters. It's really more just kind of for the back-end guys, the mid-tier guys, the bubble guys, really more a glorified tryout for those guys, which is all more reason not to be able to put too much weight into these games. However, you make a great point and a good transition with the offensive line being the most important part. I love talking O-line, and I think of all the positions that are kind of in flux right now: running back, receiver, cornerback, offensive line. The O-line is the one that's most important to solidify early, get the starting 5 guys in there and cemented, so start developing that rapport and that chemistry, which is why one of the guys I'm looking for tonight, besides my boy Joe Tooney, who I think who's doing a great job already, I'm going with Brian Stork. I want to see what he's doing today. He was kicked out of practice earlier this week for a tussle. I don't know who it was with, but David Andrews looked very good in the starting center role last week against the Saints. Stork's job may be in jeopardy. We'll see. So I'm curious to see how much time he gets, how many reps he gets, and how he looks in this game against the Bears.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny, too, because if you ask me, I mean, we've written many, many articles on this, but if you go back to see what we were writing back in June, back in May, about what the state of the Patriots roster would be and where the question marks are, I don't think we had any question marks at running back or wide receiver or tight end. I think that we looked at what it was and we're like, now we know who it's going to be. It's going to be Deion Lewis, LeGarrette Blount. It's going to be Edelman. You know, Malcolm Mitchell might emerge down the road, but they paid Chris Hogan to be the new Brandon LaFell, and then you got Gronk and Bennett, yada, yada. But then you go and you're like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen with this interior line. The Patriots brought in all these players. What's Joe Tooney going to do? Can he even win a spot? What's Josh Klein? Where's Jonathan Cooper fitting in? And we kind of figured it out. Like, Joe Tooney is the left guard. Pro Football Focus evaluated it. They got it checked off by other O-line coaches, and they're like, you know what? Joe Tooney had the best first week of the preseason of any guard in the entire league, and that's great. I mean, that's a perfect sign. That's what you want to get out of a third-round rookie. There's nothing more you can ask for. If he's the left guard of the future, we're going to find out very, very quickly because he looked exceptional. He's your boy. I'm really happy that you've been you chose well. But then also you have David Andrews and Shaq Mason at center and right guard respectively. And so this has already been pretty much determined. And so I'm curious, and I think we will find out very early in this upcoming game if that's how the Patriots are going to move. You got your line of Solder, Tooney, Andrews, Mason, and then at this point in time, Cannon, but hopefully in the future, Vollmer. And so long as this unit gets as much time as possible together, we saw the issues early on against the Saints where Nate Solder wasn't fully comfortable playing it to Joe Thuney yet, and he let in some pressure. And then once he realized that Thuney was the real deal, he settled in and everything really figured itself out. I think once the entire line becomes comfortable with one another, this O-line is going to take a huge step forward when you compare it to how it looked last year.
Well, after my huge swing and a miss with Tavares Cadet last year, I'm glad to finally get a preseason pick right. Feel good about it. To that end, though, Rich, I know we were talking about early on in training camp, at least, Jonathan Cooper, who they brought over from the Cardinals in that Chandler Jones trade. He was starting at that other guard position opposite Joe Thuney. Hurt the foot, was carted off, expected to miss some time. Do you think due to that injury, Shaq Mason's now stepped in and he's the guy, or do you think Cooper's still in the mix once he comes back from that injury?
Yeah, well, my question with Cooper is that the Patriots gave him so much money. I mean, that's just part of his contract. He's a fifth-year player. He was guaranteed like $1.5 million. I mean, he got a lot of guaranteed money. And so just based off of that, you would expect that he would have a roster spot. That type of money you don't give to someone that you're expecting to cut right away. But when you look at this roster depth chart, I don't know where he really fits in. You know, you have your 4 tackles on the roster. You got your Solder, you got your Vollmer, you got your Cannon, you got your Adrian Waddle. And so those are your 4 guys that you're very, very certain are making it at tackle. And then you look at your guards, and you got your Thuney, you got your Andrews, and you got your Mason at your starters. And then you got Josh Klein as your super sub across the backup. And when you look at what actually happens, do you take Brian Stork or Jonathan Cooper? At this point in time, I would take Brian Stork. Brian Stork backs up more positions. He is a true backup center, but he can swing out to tackle. Jonathan Cooper is really just a guard. So when you're fleshing out the rest of your roster, I might take the guy that can play more positions than the one that's just a pure guard. So I don't really know where he fits in with all of this. And maybe it'll take another injury. Maybe he could be on the short-term IR. Maybe he could just, I don't know what the plan is for him. But I'm just, the closer we're getting to the regular season, the less opportunity I see for Cooper to make this team.
No, I agree. And as I just mentioned, it's really important for whoever those 5 guys are that start to become those 5 guys as soon as possible so they can start kind of keeping the development and the gelling going. Because we all saw last season, platoon O-line just does not work. And if Shaq Mason's playing well, there's really no reason to bench him. You know, Patriots are very good at that. If you earn your spot, no matter who you are, where you came from, until they give you a reason to sit you, you're going to be out there. But speaking of getting sat down and go to the defensive side of the ball, Alan Branch is out. No one knows exactly why. A couple of days, team-initiated suspension, not like a drug policy, not an NFL thing. The team, Belichick, he probably showed up late to practice or gave someone some lip somewhere. He's out for a couple of days. I don't know how long that's going to last. Jabal Sheard should probably not see the field tonight. So some shakeup on the defensive line, as well as some cornerbacks who are all battling for a starting spot. We saw some good plays from Cyrus Jones. We saw Crevion LeBlanc, or however the hell you pronounce his name, out there doing well last week. We saw Jonathan Jones doing really well. So those are 2 positional groupings, I should say, that should be really a lot of fun to watch tonight.
Yeah, and I think we should just start with the trenches and move our way out. I think that, as you said, Alan Branch isn't expected to play. Neither is Jabal Sheard. He's been missing for the entirety of this practice week. No one knows why. Rob Ninkovich has his torn tricep, so he's not expected to play either. And then Shane McClellan, who's kind of a linebacker, kind of an edge guy, didn't practice for the last 3 days either, so we're not sure where he's going to fit in as well. We're not expecting him to play. And so the big winner out of those injuries would have to be Trey Flowers. He's the pass rusher. He's been taking first-team snaps with Chris Long. He was responsible for the best play. Okay, one of the 2 best plays last week where he had that strip sack return for a touchdown. I'm going to give Crevion LeBlanc some props for his end zone one-handed interception, 360 no-look scope, whatever. He grabbed that out of the air. But Flowers has really taken his opportunity with the first-team defense this past week, and I really think that he ultimately will join the rotation. I don't think he's going to look back. He with his time, both this preseason and last preseason, has been one of the most dominant pass rushers and consistent pass rushers. I think that that's important as well, is that he brings it to the table every single play. He can move any spot on that interior line during pass rushing snaps. He does a really good job on the outside with his leverage. And I think that he's really going to take this opportunity to show, hey, everyone, I can contribute on special teams this year. but I'm also a really dominant force that deserves to possibly play ahead of Rob Ninkovich when he comes back. And so I think that Trey Flowers is going to be a big winner on the edge. And at defensive tackle with Alan Branch out, that kind of moves up 2 players in the depth chart. So we've covered where the Patriots have 2 different types of defensive tackles. They have a space eater and then a penetrator, and Alan Branch is a space eater. And then so is Terrence Knighton, and then rookie Vincent Valentine. And I think that those are the 2 players that are really going to move up and start playing with the first team defense, or at least get some snaps against the top unit. So I'm really excited to see how those guys look.
I'm with you on Vincent Valentine. I think he looked pretty good. And nothing really massive stood out to me with him last week, but he didn't look ridiculous, which is nice. It's always good to see. You know, once in a while, I remember Jake Baquette back in a couple years ago. Every time he came out there, he just looked completely lost and get pushed around. Didn't happen with Vincent Valentine. All those 2 guys you mentioned, Rich, Terrence Knighton and Valentine, who do you expect to see more of the reps tonight with Branch out, and which one are you looking forward to seeing more?
Well, really, I would like to see Terrence Knighton more. I think that Valentine was drafted to be a work in progress. He was expected to be a long-term replacement in 2017. I wouldn't be surprised if he played only just like 10 to 15% of snaps this year and run stuffing downs, played on special teams, whatever. I don't think that he has a big role now. I think Terrence Knighton does. And so I think that I would like to see Terrence Knighton play a lot better, because we covered this last week. He was one of the players I was disappointed in watching last week. I thought that he didn't do a good job of holding his ground against double teams. I didn't think that he was overly disruptive. And I kind of thought that I needed to see more out of him in order to kind of project him as being a key player for this upcoming season. He doesn't look like he's going to bring the same level of ability that Akeem Hicks did last season. And that's kind of what you're looking for with your third defensive tackle, is some guy that can go out there. Either he has to be able to do something really well. He either has to really disrupt the pocket or just be unbelievable against the run. And I didn't see either of that from Knighton. So I'd like to see more from him. But I would not be surprised if the coaching staff threw out Marcus Kuhn, gave him some more snaps. Over the past few weeks during training camp, they used him on that first team defensive line next to Malcolm Brown. And while both of those 2 have a similar role in the defense, they're both the penetrators. They're the guys that are expected to go one-on-one with a guard and beat them and just get into the backfield and make a play. I think that they're trying to figure out where Kuhn fits into this. He's a very, very hard, high-effort guy, very athletic, but his technique is very, very prized. If the coaching staff was like, all right, we're going to use this as a teaching moment. We're going to see if and what you can bring to the table. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a kind of a rotation with Knighton and Kuhn next to Brown during the first half.
You didn't mention Geno Grissom at all, Rich. Are you not thinking he's going to get any reps tonight?
Well, I think he will. I wouldn't be surprised if he got the entire second half. They're very, very shallow on the edge right now. I mean, they're missing Sheard, Ninkovich, and then McClellan. And so those are 3 big guys. And then you look at the top 3 guys that are really available. You have Long, Flowers, and Grissom. So I think Grissom will get some time with that first team as part of the rotation. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was one of the core edge players in that second half, playing next to Rufus Johnson. So I think you look at those 4 players, those are really the only depth that the Patriots have at that position right now. So those guys are going to find a way to rotate. I wouldn't be shocked if Trey Flowers was asked to play a little bit into the second half as a part of the rotation as well. But I don't really think that Grissom brings as much to the table as Flowers. And that's why I'm hesitant on projecting him as being a key player on that first team. He's just not as impressive. He's fine. He's a good number 4 guy to have out there. He's good on special teams. He has been taken under Chris Long's wing, so I wouldn't be surprised if the 2 of them were sitting next to each other during camp. But I think Belichick is still viewing Grissom as a work in progress that deserves time in the system. But I don't think that he is quite ready to perform just yet.
I'm with you on that one. Again, the defensive line is not a work in progress. I think they have a good idea who the starters are, but the depth issue there is fantastic. It's a good problem to have. I think they're basically kind of rounding out the 2s, the 3s, and maybe even the 4s, depending on game plan, specific defensive schemes. On the flip side of that, though, who's 100% ready to play is Jamie Collins and Dante Hightower, who were dominant last week against the Saints. That was so much fun to watch. I know it was just kind of preseason. You weren't game planning for the defense, and you were kind of going very vanilla on offense. But just the instinct and the speed and the quickness, really can't ask for much more to those 2 guys. They're set. But we talked about on the last pregame preview, Rich, kind of the other linebackers not named Hightower and Collins. and we were both pretty concerned about just the lack of true talent depth there. Anybody stand out in last week's game or this week in practice, the linebacker position, that gave you a little more optimism, and any linebacker you want to see tonight do well?
Yeah, well, I was actually kind of curious after last week's game. Shea McClellan was the third linebacker, as we all expected. He was playing the traditional Sam role. Matt Chatham, Football by Football, former Patriots player. I wrote this big film breakdown about how excited I was. Look at all the fun things that Shea McClellan's doing. And then Chatham just sends me a message out of the blue and is like, hey man, like, yeah, he's doing a lot of fun things, but that's just like that's like a Sam role, pretty basic. It's like, oh, thanks, man. Thanks. But yeah, no, I thought McClellan was a good linebacker. I thought that he did a lot of things very, very well. I think it kind of showed what the Patriots viewed what Rob Ninkovich could be. It's why Rob Ninkovich was doing drills with the linebackers. I think that's what the Patriots had envisioned for this upcoming season, is some guy that can be a linebacker who can also step up on passing downs. And I thought that it kind of adds some versatility on the first down because they can have 5 guys on the line of scrimmage to help stop the run. But McClellan is agile enough to defend running backs and tight ends in the flat. So it's not like they're completely lost on an island without a paddle. But with McClellan out, I'm really curious to see what happens with Camus Grugier-Hill, because over the past few weeks, I mean, every single day we get a report that KGH has made a play on the ball, whether it's an interception or a pass breakup. He has always been around the ball. Bill Belichick says, we can find a role for him on passing downs. We think that he could be a third down player. So I'm curious to see if it's possible for his role to grow. But I think ultimately at the end of the day, Jonathan Freeney has shed his non-contact jersey. I wouldn't be surprised if he was back on the field. So I think we're going to have to be prepared mentally for another week of Jonathan Freeney out there as a key part of the Patriots defense.
Rich, I hope you appreciate the second week in a row of giving you this layup to talk about Camus Grugier-Hill. I know how excited you get when his name comes up and your eyes just light up talking about it.
It's a great name.
Oh, it's a great name. It is a great name. It's fun to say. He's fun to watch. There's a lot going on. I just hope you're appreciating how easily I'm transitioning into these opportunities for you to talk about Camus Grugier-Hill. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, I gave you a little layup there with Joe Tooney. So
you did. That's true.
One hand shakes the other.
That's indeed. Hey, what about Landon Roberts? I don't really know what to make of this guy. He's a big dude. He's 6 feet 240 or so. He's a rookie out of Houston, I believe. I didn't really get a whole big read on him. I haven't really got a read on him yet, but he intrigues me a lot. Any reports on him? Any scouting reports? Any kind of tidbits you want to share?
Yeah, nothing too crazy. He made another play on the ball during the joint practices with the Bears, but it wasn't anything special. Watching him against the Saints, it was clear that he was a step behind Ramon Humber. I thought that Humber was a much more active part of the defense. He had a real nose for the ball. And to be fair, Humber is a veteran. He was starting for the Saints at times due to injuries last year, so he knows how to play the game. But I think at this point in time, Humber is also a special team star, so I would not be shocked that Humber would take that final roster spot. Maybe Roberts would be stashed on the practice squad, but Humber's special teams ability and the fact that he just looked very, very comfortable out there on defense. He was making plays all over the field, sideline to sideline. I think that, honestly, he looked better than Jonathan Freeney did last year, so I would be very curious to see how those two guys duke it out during this game and maybe for the upcoming weeks. But I thought that Roberts himself, as you said, he didn't really draw much attention to himself. Sometimes that's fine if you're like an offensive lineman and no one sees that you did anything wrong. You would like to see, if a player is competing for a roster spot, facing those third and fourth stringers, you would like to see them emerge above and beyond the competition in order to turn some heads. But he didn't really do that. He kind of just settled in. He didn't do anything wrong. But again, you would like to see something. You would like to be able to point and say, oh, this is exactly what he did, and this is why you need him on the team, which is what we were able to do with KGH. Grugier-Hill, we were able to say, you know what? He was out there with that first-team defense on passing downs, and he didn't look lost. And I think that's much higher praise than saying Roberts was out there with the third and fourth stringers, and he didn't look lost. And so I think that at this point in time, Roberts is going to have to make some play happen in order to draw more attention.
I'll tell you another Roberts who needs to make some play happen. It's Daryl Roberts, because I think that he, and you are not on my depth chart, he was kind of in the next tier of guys fighting for maybe a possible starting position after promising preseason last year. But I think he got eclipsed by a decent number of players in the secondary during the last game against the Saints. Jonathan Jones played really well. I thought E.J. Biggers looked pretty good at times. Crevon LeBlanc had that great interception we already talked about. And then D'Angelo Bentley was returning kicks and punts, so he may be able to sneak on as a kick punt returner. Obviously, Cyrus Jones is a lock. Malcolm Butler looking around. We've talked about them. But there's a lot of these defensive backs now that are going to be showcased tonight. I think are a pretty important night for these guys. And Darryl Roberts seems to might have fallen toward the back of the pack in what is a very, very crowded defensive backfield.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you look at who the roster locks are. I mean, as you said, you got Butler, Ryan, Justin Coleman, Cyrus Jones. Those are the locks. I would not expect the Patriots to carry more than 5 because, I mean, we've gone through the rest of this roster. There's not a place where you can cut corners. I mean, if you carry 9 offensive linemen, that's already shorthanding yourself a little bit. Who are you going to cut in order to make extra space for a 6th cornerback? I don't think you can really do that. So you have Jonathan Jones, you have Crevon LeBlanc, and then you have Darryl Roberts, who are all competing for that same spot. And at this point in time, I kind of think D'Angelo Bentley and E.J. Biggers are on the outside looking in, just because you go with youth over Biggers. I think Biggers is like 29 years old or something. So you go with the young guys with some more upside over in favor of him. And then Bentley didn't really do anything on the defensive side, and all those other guys play special teams. I know they don't return kicks like Bentley does, but I think ultimately you go with the guys who have defensive upside, who can play a little bit of special teams over some guy who returns kicks with nothing on defense. And I just because you can only have so many pure special teams players on the roster. And so looking at the questionnaire, is denominator 314 of Pat's Pulpit asks the question, is there any chance that both Jonathan Jones and Crevon LeBlanc make the roster? And then we can throw Darryl Roberts into this as well. I don't think so. I don't think they can do that. I think one of them will make it. I personally think it's going to be Jonathan Jones, even though Crevon LeBlanc is making a very, very strong effort for it. I think that you think the Patriots are going to try and stash possibly both, whichever 2 cornerbacks out of Jones, LeBlanc, and Roberts don't make the team. I think the Patriots are going to try and stash 2 of them on the practice squad, but I don't see them making it through waivers. I think that this is just a case where the Patriots have done a really good job of showing that these guys deserve to be in the NFL. They have a lot of upside, and some other team's going to be able to capitalize on it. Same thing with Justin Coleman last year. The Patriots were able to take him away from the Vikings and eventually the Seahawks. You see these guys that really perform well, and then they deserve a spot. And you can't keep them all, no matter, even if you want to. So unless one of them gets hurt, I wouldn't be surprised if LeBlanc is playing for some other team at some point this year, or Jonathan Jones. But I don't see the Patriots being able to keep 6 cornerbacks.
No, I'm with you on that. And we could talk about cornerbacks all day, but it's almost game time, Rich. We should probably wrap this up. One more quick question for you, then we'll get to our meaningful and important predictions for this game.
So important.
I want give me one player, obvious or not obvious, either side of the ball, you're most excited to see tonight, and why.
Oh, gosh. I mean, I'm always excited to see Trey Flowers. I think that it's a lot of fun to see what he can bring to the table with Jabal Sheard, Voden, Rob Ninkovich, and Shea McClellan out. But I'm going to throw a really easy one out there. Chris Hogan. If he is out there, he is somebody that we've been waiting to see this entire preseason. He has developed a good rapport with every single quarterback out there. I'm excited to see what he brings to the table. By all accounts, he's a more explosive version of Brandon LaFell. LaFell in 2014 was top 25 wide receiver based off of production. If Chris Hogan can do that, this Patriots offense is going to be in great shape. So I'm really excited to see what he brings to the table.
Good answer. I'm not sure if he's playing tonight, but I'm hoping James Devlin comes back and damages again. I love that guy. I like to see him out there knocking some heads around and make sure he's back to full strength, and fellow Brown grad. So I got to root for my boy James Devlin. If he's even playing, I have no idea. All right. So with that, it's time for predictions. So last week I said Saints were going to lose 16-9. Samsonite. Ooh. I was way off. You had 28-23. Final score was 34-22. So not a bad pick, Rich. You took that one.
That wasn't bad.
So week 2, Bears are in town. Kick off in about 10 minutes or so, Eastern Standard Time. All the local New England affiliates and 98.5 The Sports Hub for your radio broadcast. Since you won the last one, Rich, you get first crack. What's the score of this game going to be?
Oh, man, I kind of think that the Bears are going to try and play really hard here. You saw that the energy that they brought to camp. I think that the Patriots, first team, are going to leave with a lead. But I think in the second half, I think that the Bears are going to turn the tables. I think that, Brian Hoyer is their third-string quarterback, I want to say. He's like, they have some depth there that I really believe that they'll eventually overpower the Patriots. I think so. The Patriots will have some teen versus teen lead at halftime, but ultimately the Bears are going to win something like 24-20.
24-20. It's funny. I think the exact opposite is going to happen. I think that the Bears are going to have a lead coming into the halftime, and the Patriots are going to turn on with their seconds, their twos and threes. I think you're right. I think for whatever reason, even in the preseason, you remember with the Detroit Lions back in the day when they'd be like so happy when they beat the Patriots in the preseason. They were throwing Jim Schwartz Gatorade back. There's something about playing the Patriots that teams get really up for because they're good. And I think the Bears brought the energy this week in practice. They are going to bring the noise to the game. I think they're going to leave with a lead at halftime. Then when everyone kind of sits down, maybe Garoppolo and or Brissett will take whoever is out there at the time, with maybe AJ Derby again and go with the lead. So I'm going to go with the Patriots winning this one in the second half, kind of pull maybe a couple of fourth quarter leads. I'm going to go with 28-21 Patriots.
Nice. Well, I'm really excited to watch AJ Derby. I think that he could be something that's fun to watch. I hope he's not another Sudfeld. But Alec, you enjoy the game.
You too, buddy. Take care.
All right. Thanks everyone for watching.